Hello and welcome to the first DrivingMaul show of 2022. Well, we'll have a look forward to the year and what might be coming up and have a few chats about what is going on. It's been a bit had a bit of an off season where we've kind of not been on very often, but looking to get back into the routine now of things as we're just over a month away from Super Rugby, and 2 weeks before that we've got the Six Nations as well. So a couple of things we'll definitely be looking forward to at during the show. I'm Paul. I'm your host here on DrivingMaul. It looks like I'm going to be the only one on this evening. So all the other ones clearly had too much excessive festive celebrating over the festive period. And hopefully you've all stayed safe and have had a good Christmas and New Year. Happy New Year to you all. And have all been kept safe and are staying well as well with all the stuff that's just going on generally in New Zealand and around the world at the moment. So what are we going to have a chat about? Well, obviously we'll have a chat about Super Rugby Pacific. We've got the All Blacks to talk about. The Black Ferns have also got the Women's Rugby World Cup coming up. So definitely be having a look at all of that. Good evening to Simon, who says he had a prior engagement, so he's out and watching on demand. So don't forget, folks, you can watch live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can add comments in YouTube and Facebook, but you can't on Twitter, I'm afraid. Also, I'll be putting out the audio recording as a podcast as well. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio for that. And good evening to Nocturnal Rights as well. So, yes. Let's go through, I guess, a couple of little news items. That we've had a player in Japan, an ex-NRL player playing rugby union over there, get caught with cocaine. Silly boy. We'll have to see how that pans out, because in the past we've seen teams forfeit the entire season over things like this. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. Not a great start to the new year and the rugby over there in Japan. Japan have also been having a chat about they need to have a regular international rugby championship to be part of, and that they're in talks with both the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere teams. Now, look, by Northern Hemisphere, obviously you've only got one tier one competition in the Northern Hemisphere, and that one is the Six Nations, and finding space in that one is very difficult. Obviously, not only is Japan having a chat there, but Fiji's been rumoured to be taking part in it. According to France, at one point, Georgia would clearly love to be in there, and South Africa has made overtures as well. So, look, the Six Nations is already pretty much full. As where would you add extra games in the calendar? Whereas the Rugby Championship, with just 4 teams in it currently in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and Argentina, clearly has more space for a team like Japan and or Fiji as well to be parts of that one. So they've said that whilst they are geographically a Northern Hemisphere team, from a time zone point of view, with Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific in their time zone, that a regular competition with those teams would perhaps be more logical, even if from a temperature point of view, home games would perhaps be a bit hot in their summer. So it's good to keep that on the old media radar and keep pushing for it. But the Rugby Championship does seem to be the natural home for Japan at the moment. Dr. Rice puts what Coke question. I wonder if Coke is actually a major problem amongst pro rugby and league players. Well, it does seem like a big problem for the NRL currently. Whether it is in rugby or not, I don't know. I do know that in England, for example, not only do they do performance enhancing drugs testing, but they also do recreational drug testing as well. And a few players did get caught a few years ago on that one and get banned for it. Matt Stevens, it's a name that springs to mind on that one. So look, The fact that it hasn't cropped up as often in rugby union suggests that it maybe not such a big an issue here. But in the NRL, if you listen to the Standoff show, those boys definitely think that it's that cocaine is a one of those sleeping problems that the NRL isn't grasping and taking seriously and taking care of. And let's be honest. So that's the Japan kind of side of things. Eddie Jones has been chatting about, or has been probably asked and answered about the British and Irish Lions job ahead of their tour to Australia in 3 years' time. On that one, so you've. Unsurprisingly, really, with Let's Gatland didn't have the best of tours to South Africa, and it's very rare for a British and Irish Lions coach to actually do back-to-back tours, never mind 3 on the bounce like Gatland has done. So I think, look, his reign has come to its natural conclusion. The fact that he's done 3 is amazing. I can't think of anyone else who's done 3 on the bounce like that. Geach obviously done several. I don't think he's not sure about back-to-back British and Irish Lions tours. And it's funny though. Jones said, look, he hasn't got any connection to the British and Irish Lions, that it should be a homegrown coach, suggesting that both Andy Farrell and Gregor Townsend would be good choices for that. Both have obviously been assistant coaches on tours, British and Irish Lions tours. So yeah, unsurprising that their names will come up in the discussions. But the way that Eddie Jones's contract was structured, it did appear that he was gunning for the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa. Now to Australia, I think it's a different one, obviously going back to your home country. So maybe he doesn't want to do that one. But I guess that one that he could be. But yeah, I think he was gunning for the South Africa one. Whatever he's saying now, but I think he probably sees that it's not likely to be on the radar. Bit of a chat there in the live chat about the about drugs testing on that side of things. Look, the fact that Matt Stevens got tested the very first day that he came back to playing shows you that it's targeted testing, not just random testing. Even though there will be an element of random testing as well, both in competition and out of competition, testing for that one. As Craig points there, he says, look, that he thinks steroids is a bigger problem in his opinion. And look, with the steroids one, yeah, to me, I think that is probably a problem, especially with younger players who are looking to try and break into professional rugby. One of the things about steroids is that after you stop using it, apparently you keep 25% of the muscle gain. And so even when you've come off it and you can be tested and be totally clean, you've still got an advantage over players who haven't done it. So there's definitely you can see an incentive for steroids to be used in off season to bulk up on that one. So it'll be interesting to see. So I do think steroids is still probably a problem in rugby, and it is definitely in the amateur ranks. Rugby is one of the. I haven't seen the stats recently in the last couple of years, but rugby used to be had the most bans of any sport in the UK, with the UK drugs authority or doping authority there. Say most of their bans were for players. Now, not professional players, as in the amateur ranks. So I know that there is definitely a lot of people or a bunch of people who do take steroids for cosmetic purposes, to look better, rather than necessarily for performance enhancing from a professional point of view or high performance point of view. So there are those sort of people that get caught as well from that point in that side of things. So those are the kind of little news items I've spotted that have come up. Looking forwards then, our first up is the Six Nations, which kicks off on the 5th of February. this year. We kick off with Ireland versus Wales, Scotland versus England, and the following day, France versus Italy. Look, it has the makings of a cracking Six Nations. And let's be honest, Ireland beating the All Blacks, clearly they're in a good position at the moment. And g'day to Scott, who's just joined us on the live chat over there on Facebook. Obviously France also beating the All Blacks, looking particularly good. Wales, the Six Nations champions from last year. Well, last year they had 5 red cards for teams playing against them in a calendar year, which has got to be a record in international rugby there on that one. Scotland also on the up, and then obviously poor old Italy rounding things out. England as well there. Am I covering the Heineken Cup? No, sorry, Scott, I've not been following the Heineken Cup. We've taken a bit of an off season of things. So I'm looking forward more to what's happening in 2022 from a Kiwi, and what we'll probably notice more from a New Zealand point of view. So looking at that Six Nations, then France get to host Italy, Ireland, and also England this year, and having to travel to Wales and Scotland. Now, Scotland, France traveling to Scotland has always been a tough one for them, one of those banana skin games. But you've got to say that draw, having Ireland and England at home, really sets things up nicely for France, and they'll be gunning. I think they'll probably go into this one as favourites for the Six Nations. The final round of games with Ireland, Scotland, and France, England, after Wales have beaten Italy in that one, looks good. Now, obviously, this is all COVID dependent, and who knows what will happen. I mean, there's been travel bans, etc., that have happened, but they'll obviously, from a financial point of view, they will look at making sure all these games go ahead at some point in the year. That's why something went last until nearly November last year. So, look, it will all go ahead. Really looking forward to this one, and a couple of games that are nice and easy to watch in New Zealand. Wales versus France is a 9 a.m. kickoff so that'll be a nice easy one for us to catch. As also is the France versus England, a 9 a.m. kickoff for that one as well. Dr. Ross says, how many red cards will Wales win against the opposition? It's got to be 0, surely. They must have had used all their luck last year on that one. Or is there something about the Welsh players and the Welsh team that just encourages players to tackle them high? I don't know. Is there a different running technique that they use, or do they wind up players in a way that no other teams don't? But it's amazing how many red cards they did have that sort of went their way in 2021 in that one. Craig reckons he's picking England this time around again. Looking at their fixtures, they travel away to Scotland and then to Italy. Now, the Italy one shouldn't be a problem, before hosting Wales and Ireland, and then travelling over to France. So, those trips too. So this is, again, one of the perhaps better ones here that's better draws in some ways for them, in that they've got both Ireland and Wales at home, even if they have to go away for 3 games. But that one of those ones being Italy, you don't have to worry so much about that one. Let's be honest. Scotland got their tails up. I mean, look, they've been definitely an improving team, so that'll be a tough game first out for them on that one. But look, I think you can make a good argument for 5 of those 6 teams winning the Six Nations this year, which is a cracking start on this one. One of the problems for France will be about player release. Will they get all their players for all their games, and will their players get to rest, etc.? So a few things in there for that one. So Dominic's giving us his predictions here. France and the Six Nations. I think that's quite an easy. That's a good one. South Africa for the Rugby Championship. That's going to be an interesting one. We'll have to look at that one because the fixtures are a bit strange this year, or a bit different this year, aren't they? For this one, and Blues to win Super Rugby. Oh, well, I've got the Blues jersey up there, so we're ready for that one. That's for sure. If it comes about. On that one. So those are the games in the Six Nations. I say France going as favourites, but I think there's five decent teams there that will win it, that could win it, which makes it it's about who puts the games together on the day and all that blah blah blah, and also injuries as well. As Nocturnal Rights says, is Alwyn Jones available, fit and available? I'm not sure, but let's be honest, he is. How many more yards has he got in him? I know he's trying to make it to next Rugby World Cup, so will he be nursed through some of these games as well? So will they manage his workload to make sure he's at the Rugby World Cup as well on that side of things? But player availability and player injuries are always a big thing for these as well, because I mean, great to see Gareth Anderson come back for Wales after his very long, nearly 2 years of injuries with his legs. So great to see him back and actually getting and being able to play. Moving on then into Super Rugby, and obviously we have been disrupted. We had a schedule released, and then Omicron came along, and the travel rules changed, and hence we had a rejigged fixture list announced, which sees all of the sort of teams within New Zealand. So the ones you know of, obviously the Blues, Chiefs, Hurricanes, Crusaders, Highlanders, plus Moana Pacifica playing against each other for the first 8 rounds or so. 9 rounds I think it is. Whereas and then the Australian sides, so your Reds, Waratahs, Brumbies, Rebels, Western Force joining the Fijian Drua, playing their games. Playing their games against each other in the first half of as well. Now, for the Blues and the Crusaders, who had their bye in round 9, that gives them a nice little break between the home derby games and the other games. Unlike the Hurricanes, who will be playing the Highlanders in round 9 before heading over before hosting the Reds in round 10. Now, to me, this doesn't make much sense in that one, unless I haven't read it in enough detail, this one. But you'd think that if you're going to have a buys, why not make all the buys in round 9? So you have 8 rounds of derbies, have a week off, which means that if you had to travel and do quarantine, so if you have to host the second half of the tournament all in one country, you can do. By having teams like the Hurricanes having to play those back-to-back and not having that break, I don't know if the Fijian Drua, who are the travelling team, do have that break, but I think they've made a bit of a mistake here in future-proofing the tournament. I think it's going to make life easier for themselves if they'd had that. If all the teams had round 9 off. Now the TV schedule probably wouldn't have liked that one, but it's one of those ones where you that to me it would make a lot more sense in this one. We've got Hyde's good for the game, who's dialing in from South Africa. Happy New Year to you. Nocturnal Rights going for the Highlanders in this one. Dominic Cooper with the Blues. Dominic asked me, do I think the Blues can do it? With Roger Tuivasa and Bowden. Now with Bowden, definitely. Let's be honest. Bowden is a big addition for the team. Also, remember the Chiefs will be missing Dane McKenzie, who's heading off to Japan on his sabbatical. But they've got Brady Retallick back, so swings and roundabouts for them. Look, can the Blues do it? Absolutely, the Blues can do it. But you got to say the Crusaders come into this one as favourites on this one, as they do every kind of year. Sure, they didn't win the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, but they've won all the Super Rugbys and Super Rugby Aotearoas that they have been taking part in. So recently, and so you've got to say Crusaders come into this one as favourites, but I think the Blues, the Chiefs, even the Highlanders are in with a are in with a shout of these ones. For me, the Hurricanes, well, a few changes, bringing in players like Dominic Bird and in there might help them in that engine room, and a bit of weight in there. But still, with Jackson Garden Bishop and Aidan Morgan as your two fly halves, sure, Ruben Love has been playing fly half as well. They do look a bit thin on the ground there. Also, I think Jamie Booth is injured again for the season. So who are they going to replace replace him with? So yeah, you've got to say I think the Hurricanes are perhaps the ones that you've got to worry about or suggest that perhaps not up with the other teams from to me in New Zealand. Looking at some of the players that are going to stick out. I mean, Nocturnal Rights makes a good point. It's a big year for Caleb Clark at the Blues. We've got Roger Tuivasa coming in there, who I think will probably be looking at playing in the 12 jersey. It's been vacated by TJ Fayani, who's headed over to Japan in that one. The loss of Patrick Tuipulotu to Japan is a massive loss for the Blues. And Craig asking, are the forwards good enough? And I think that's going to be the problem, isn't it? Is that engine room losing Kali Tuioti, and Tuipulotu. Luke Romano, though, coming in from the Crusaders, he'll bring obviously a lot of playing and experience in there, which is fantastic. And so you add that into the fact that they've got 4 All Black props. So you've got All Black props coming off the bench. Riccatelli has joined Kurt Eklund and Sione Vikanai. So look, they've got a decent front row. Some Luke Romano in that engine room. James Tucker will pick up. We'll give them some aggro in there as well. And then you've got to say, who do you play in that back row? Because you've got Kiriwani, Dogs Papali'i, Tom Robinson, who argues club captain, Hoskins Tutu. So you've got 3. We've got 4 players there who've all been. Oh, sorry, 3. I don't think actually Tom Robinson made it into the All Blacks setup. I think he might have been kind of injured there. Plus Anton Segner, who is a very highly regarded German player in there. So the guy from Germany who's been down in the South Island doing his kids rugby. So look, yes, a very good team with Finlay Christie, who have obviously been playing well last year with there. So look, cracking team for the Blues, but yeah, all eyes Roger Tuivasa and also Caleb Clark coming back as well. I wouldn't mind to see a bit more of Jacob Ratumikavu Neatkins as well in there. Cracking player at the I've gone blank the Bunnings NP sea level. Romano, yeah, he's not going to speed the forwards up, but he's going to bring a lot of experience. And look, he's still a cracking player. Played a lot off the bench over the last few years, so I think that's helped elongate his career. Looking on to the Chiefs then, and look, I think one of the big things is that they have kept Clayton McMillan as their head coach. And basically Warren Gatland has been sidelined. Let's be blunt. Whilst he's in this director of rugby role, Clayton McMillan will have control of the men's team at the very least. So not worried there about the what do you call it, about any interference. I did have a very, very brief chat with at an NPC game with Clayton. Said, hey, will Warren Gatland be running the water? And he laughed and said no. So on that one, I think he'll have full control of it. obviously, their signing that's going to be the big one is Josh Ioane coming there from the Highlanders, with, as we've said, Dane McKenzie heading overseas. Another one that'll be sort of obviously Brady Retallick returning as well. That'll fly under the radar, but I think may go very well is Amoni Nawa, who was is a Bay of Plenty player. So Clayton McMillan knows him from there, who's moved down from the Blues. So really looking. So that will be he's something to look out for there, folks. But Josh Ioane is going to be the one that everyone's going to keep an eye on. Clearly had some off-field issues down there with both Otago and also the Highlanders. But I think Clayton's the kind of guy who'll probably bring out the best in him. Doesn't take any kind of rubbish there. So again, cracking side with Brody Retallick back there in the along with some Josh Lord, Arcoy, and Topu Va'ai, 3 All Black locks in that lot. So you've got to say that'll be a cracking engine room. And when you got Sam Kane, Luke Jacobson, Soakula also in there in that loose trio, you've got a cracking team. Now clearly, props is going to be and maybe the with Nathan Harris retiring, perhaps also hooker. Obviously, Samasoni Tuakalaho had a fantastic season, breakthrough season last year. I guess the question is more around the backup for him once he comes off the pitch. So, look, Chiefs in with a good shout. For the Crusaders, well, this is a very different season for them. Sorry, beer break here. A very different off-season. If we look at the number of changes that the Chiefs have had, they've only brought in 5 players. That's the kind of number that the Crusaders normally bring in. And the Crusaders normally bring them in from just 2 provinces, which is Canterbury and Tasman. Whereas if we have a look at them this year, they're bringing in 9 players. We've got players coming in from the Chiefs, Hurricanes, Taranaki, Stade Francais, as well as Canterbury. So, as I say, it's not got that level of continuity that the Crusaders normally have. That's a lot of turnover for them. Pablo Matera clearly will be the headline signing. But look, he's moving into a back row where, let's be honest, with Blackadder, Cullen Grace in there as well. It's not an area that they necessarily, and Tom Christie, it's not an area they necessarily lack for quality. Anyway, Triple T coming in along with Drummond and Bryn Hall. So that's 3 players who I think have had All Blacks experience in halfbacks there. And with Brett Cameron heading overseas to Japan, Simon Hickey coming in. And let's be honest, if Richard Moranga's got the first few games off, hasn't he, as a break? And that has got to be the big question mark is that fly half position, how many games they lose first up because of that. Because let's be honest, Simon Hickey or Fergus Burke, not really the kind of guys that you'd be really wanting to put in that position to run the team. A massive step down, perhaps the biggest step down from Richard Wonga that you've got in any of the kind of positions. Clearly, they're going to be a well-oiled machine. Yes, they've lost a few players. Alan Alatoa across to Leinster. You've got Luke Romano leaving as well. But look, when you think there's still Scott Barrett, Mitch Dunshay, Quinton Strange, Sam Whitelock being joined by Zach Gallagher. There's no problems there. Losing Frederick Douglas, but you're replacing him with Pablo Matera. Losing Mattielli, but so you've got Kinney Naholo coming in. His big issue has also been injuries over the last few years. Let's hope he can get over that. But when you've already got George Bridge, Lester Fainanuku, Sever Reese, Will Jordan, it's not like you're short of talent. So the Crusaders will go well yet again. The Highlanders have had a number of changes with 14 players come in. But the Highlanders do this every single year, and every single year we look at them on paper and go, wow, they're going to take some while to get going. And then they go have a coach like Tony Brown who gets the best out of them. As Nocturnal Rat says, Frizzell to make a statement this year. Clearly, he is someone that's will be wanting to make a statement with that that number 6 jersey. Still not really locked in, yeah, he's clearly a player who wants him to do well. Gareth Evans back, sort of down there from the Hurricanes, is a good versatile back rower in there. I think Parry Parkinson is injured again, so that's going to be a bit of a problem for that one. Yeah, Parry Parkinson's missing is going to be a big issue for them in there, in that the engine room. Yeah, Bryn Evans again, the old boy, going to be asked to do a lot of work. Sam Caird come over from the Waratahs to join Josh Dixon and Selby Rickett, yeah, Parry Parkinson can be a big miss in that one. So, as always, the obviously you do kind of wonder how they'll go. But look, Josh Ioane's left, but let's be honest, Mitch Hunt was always the first choice at 10 down there. Marnie Banks coming in to be the backup boy. Yes, bringing back the who's also been down at Southland, bringing back that the cult figure that he is. With Scott Gregory playing well in the centres, he'll be happy there. Thomas Manga Jensen and you've got Tomkinson in there. So look, you still got players there, players like Nariki, Koroi, Solomon Amalo in those back positions. Again, dangerous. So a team that will be able to get a few teams, I think, probably underrating them, and will pick up some games. The Hurricanes, I've talked about this already, isn't it? Yeah, is that lack of a recognisable fly half, losing Jamie Booth, because obviously with Jonathan Tuatane heading off to Moana Pacifica, they really do lack depth there for me on that one. And so I think the Hurricanes are the one that are going to struggle this year for this one, to be honest with you. Oops. Nariki and Tomkinson are out for the year already. Jeez. That's and this is one of the problems we had with Super Rugby Aotearoa was the fact was the damage of players, basically the wear and tear on players. So that's what's that. The Highlanders with 3 players out for the season already. That's just nuts. And we've got the game has got to be depowered somehow, so that players actually do last, or only play over the weekend, and reduce number of games, because at the moment, yeah, losing this number of players to season-ending injuries is a real problem. We did have a chat with Clayton McMillan. I did ask him, look, how much of a problem is Moana Pacifica going to be as far as just being an extra 30-odd players who aren't available once injuries happen? And he said, yeah, there is that, but that Major League Rugby has also taken away a lot of players as well. Your pathways are going to be required, because you can have perhaps nearly as many as a third of the players coming in as injury replacements. So there's a lot of, just because these players are being named, there are a lot of other players that will be playing, and that depth and how well you can integrate them is going to be really important for these teams. So there we go. That's a quick run through of the Moana Pacifica teams. For the All Blacks, their mid-year fixtures are 3 tests against Ireland, which is juicy, let's be honest, especially after that loss in November on that one. The other games that are happening is that France are off to play Japan twice, England on a 3-test tour to Australia, whilst Wales go on a 3-test tour to South Africa. Scotland will be playing Argentina over 3 tests. So it looks like Italy will probably be heading to the USA and Canada. That's not been released yet on that one. Simon Hughes says reducing game is not going to happen. Fans will not permit games to depart catch-22. Yeah, there is definitely a case of less is more, perhaps, and we're going to have to see how that one, whether it's fans allowing players, allowing games not to have less games, or whether it's administrators and the old cash side of things. I think it might be the latter rather than the former on that one. I'm not sure how much say the fans really do have on how many games the players do actually play. So that's the mid-year games, and I say it. New Zealand have obviously got Ireland there, then the Rugby Championship, where they'll be looking to basically reassert their authority, because let's be honest, that's definitely been lost with the loss to South Africa, the loss to Ireland, and the loss to France. They really need to get that authority and the sort of the fear of the All Black jersey back, because I think a lot of players, a lot of teams have seen that and gone, they're a bit vulnerable at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ian Foster handles that. But players there should be zero issues around motivation for the players heading into the international window, which kicks off on the 9th of July for New Zealand, but the 2nd of July for the other mid-year games. So it's one of those things that we do have to look at safety in the game, as I say, but we'll have to see how they go. Simon Hughes, that's right. A couple months ago, the American Rugby said that Italy is touring Georgia and Romania. Yes, I do remember that now, which is not listed on the list I'm looking at, which is cracking for Georgia and Romania. This was part of the, if you remember, part of the plan post the 2019 Rugby World Cup was that Georgia and Romania would be getting a home test every July. So good to see that happening here. I think Scotland was supposed to do it last year, but didn't, obviously because of COVID in that one. So the yes, one of those things that's good to see. But yeah, you do have to start wondering. Well, Canada obviously on the downside after missing out on the Rugby World Cup, and the USA also not the team that they kind of were on that one. Simon corrects me. He says, look, that he says powers don't allow it to be deep. The players don't allow the game to be depowered. But yeah, administrators are the ones and TV companies who want content quite clearly. Dominic Caird, Cooper says Ireland will beat New Zealand once in July. Wow. Ireland have never beaten New Zealand in New Zealand. Obviously, they've won once in Chicago and a couple of times in Dublin. But to win in New Zealand, oh boy, would Ian Foster survive that one? Obviously, it looks like he has survived the end of year review. But to lose to Ireland in New Zealand, ouch. That would be a biggie. Let's be honest. So no, I can't. So New Zealand will have to get that 3 match ones, and hopefully I'll get on to the Irish podcast I was on. I'm on blank as what it's called now. But anyway, that I had a quick chat with ahead of the Ireland versus New Zealand game in November. So for that one, yeah, look, Ian Foster has to come through that Ireland series unscathed with 3 wins heading into the Rugby Championship. Now I just realised I've not got the Rugby Championship fixtures up. Sorry, guys. Let me just get those up now because things have changed slightly on this one. Oops, that's the wrong one. That is the way that why can't I find the page that I'm looking for? Sorry, folks. So in 2022, that's because the page hasn't been made. Let me find those fixtures now. The fixtures, I believe, are changing in that they have. I think Australia wasn't Australia, so if you're going to Argentina for 2 games rather than it being 1 game in South Africa, 1 game in Argentina. So I think it has changed in that one, in how those are being done. So the so yes, that's right. Australia will head over to Argentina to kick off the Rugby Championship. 2 games over there. New Zealand will have 2 games in South Africa. Now, historically, one of the problems Australia's always had is that they always play the All Blacks first and lose their first 2 games, and it's always downhill from there on. So it's a different order to the games this year, starting with those games over in South Africa and Argentina before the games come back, and you have South Africa visiting New Zealand and Australia. Argentina will visit New Zealand, Australia, and obviously the 2 games between South Africa and Argentina as well. So I think that's how it's going to be panning out. So looking forward to that one. And say the fact that the fixtures have been mixed up, it's not the same schedule as before, so we'll have to get used to that one there. Finally, then is around the Women's Rugby World Cup, and look, the Black Ferns had their worst ever season last year with 4 games. First time they've ever lost 4 games back to back. The first time they ever lost a game by more than 17 points, and they did it 4 times. Yes, and then also allegations after the end of it around how the head coach was managing the players, and how one of the players had a breakdown because of that as well. An experienced Rugby World Cup winner as well. So we're not talking about an experienced player here, but one of the veteran Black Ferns in there. Now, there's a review ongoing about that. We have to see how that one pans out. But if what has been said is true, it's very difficult to see how Brad Moore holds on to his position. You've got to say, and ahead of the Women's Rugby World Cup that's being held here in New Zealand, from the what the dates again? It's gone blank. From the 8th of October to the 12th of November, it is a real worry for the All Blacks on this one. So we'll have to see how this one runs out. And do the Black Ferns have a whole bunch of other players they could select? No. This is the team. The side that's got there was the best available side and the best available squad that they had available. The amount of depth and availability of players isn't massive. We don't have a professional 15s league like they do in the UK or in England. We have a provincial one where where most of the players are amateurs. Even the top players like Chelsea Alley are semi-professional with having, so she mentioned she has 5 jobs to survive. So how do they turn things around from a Black Ferns point of view? Well, the first thing you need to do is get them all professional, because at the moment, let's be blunt, they just don't have the preparation time to compete with players who are full-time professionals and preparing full-time. And I can't see that happening with the current financial situation at New Zealand Rugby, and hence I can't see the Black Ferns turning things around in time for the Rugby World Cup to win it. England will go in as favourites for this one, and do I think they will win it? They probably will. I think France also have a good shout as well going into it. I think those two should really be the two that decide how this one pans out. With France currently being number fourth ranked in the world. The Black Ferns still ranked number 2 in the world, and Canada number 3 there. But the situation in Canada has their administration has been a mess, and again, there's been allegations and issues around the way they've been coached and by the coaching setup there as well. So the so I think it's looking bad for the Black Ferns heading into that one. Will they be in the sort of in the top sort of three and making the sort of semi-finals? Yes, I do expect they will be, because the gap between England and France, who have got pretty much professional teams, and the rest is very big in this one. So far, we've got the teams that automatically qualified were Canada, the USA, England, France, Wales, Australia, and New Zealand. South Africa, Japan, Italy, and Fiji have all joined them. Fiji, who are ranked 21 in the world, currently the lowest ranked team. But look how they did at the Olympics in the sevens. They're a country that's starting to take the women's rugby much more seriously, and it's coming through and showing really well. There is one final place left, which is from the repechage. Currently, Scotland and Samoa are in there. They can be joined by by an Asian team, and then also by one of the teams between Kenya and Colombia in that one as well. So one more team to be added. New Zealand will be New Zealand are with Australia, Wales, and the repechage winner. Now, New Zealand, you would expect, would top that pool, looking at past results on that one. Canada, the USA, Italy, and Japan are in Pool B. And then the pool of death, Pool C, England, France, South Africa, and Fiji into that one. But you'd expect both England and France to come out of that group and to be in the quarter-finals. So for that one, Simon says Super Rugby Women's competition needs to be double round at the minimum. Look, there are a number of things that need to be done. We obviously do have the new Super Rugby Women's competition, which will have 4 teams in it. One from the South Island, the Hurricanes, Chiefs, and the Blues. Sorry, I was gone blank as to the name for the team in the South Island. I think they should also be joined by a Moana Pacifica team, to be honest. And also there should be some cross-Tasman games against Super W, over in Australia. That's been running for a number of years. So look, it's great that we do have a Super Rugby Women's competition this year, but it's got a long way to go. It is a step forward, but it is a small step forward, and there are a lot more steps forward to take after it. But at least it is a step in the right direction. But there's a lot of catching up to do with the structures in England and France. Now, one of the issues that we have is that so we'll have to wait and see how quickly that ramps up. It looked like New Zealand Rugby did say at the time that they had locked it in for that format for 2 years. So there was a certainty that's happening, but also on the flip side, it does show that they're not looking at expanding it quickly. The head of women's rugby has left New Zealand Rugby and is to be replaced. I can't remember if they've hired the person yet. Also, the woman who is running the transformation program within New Zealand Rugby has also left as well. So 2 key people in that kind of space having left recently it means that whoever gets in has got to get their feet under the table and kind of get it moving as well. So I don't expect to see vast change in a quick change in that space, to be honest with you. Well, it's been good to get back on the horse, as it were, and bring you the DrivingMaul show on a Tuesday. I'll be looking at bringing you that to you we're coming to you every Tuesday with the DrivingMaul show. We've had a bit of an off season towards the end of last year, but with Super Rugby Super Rugby Pacific coming up, the Six Nations coming up, it's time to ramp back up with all the rugby stuff. Hope you're all well, and catch you next Tuesday.